Hi, my name is Jason T. Ingram, and I live in Oregon. And I'm doing a thing where I'm documenting a time in my life when I am doing the stuff that I love and turning it into a career. I hope to encourage other people that live with mental disabilities to be able to do stuff like this and hopefully connect with others that are dealing with the same things at the same time in their life. And I like attention, I want to be popular. Part of that is that I'm pursuing a career in entertainment. And I realized this the hard way, and it's pretty much the nature of the beast, so to speak, that having talent, education, experience, and ideas doesn't really secure much of a career in the arts. And that's obvious because look at all the shit that's out there, and you wonder, why is that person on stage? Well, because her dad is a big producer. Ah, okay, yeah. So, popularity and social status, and a lot of times social status is riding on the status of another person. I've never really had that luxury because every time I do get with somebody who I consider successful or somebody that could take my career to another level, typically that's not the case. And I've found that I was trying to get some really good karma in that area, so I would seek out artists that I thought had a little bit of talent, and if they were willing to work with me, then I would try to produce some of their music or art or whatever it is. And sometimes they make it, and most of the time it's more of a hobby, but at least, I had some experience and I was hoping that maybe somebody would return the favor. Maybe they would pay me, which sometimes happened. But in the last, almost 5 years, that just really hasn't been the case. It's really been sad, and I think I expected more out of people. And at the same time, I'm dealing with a lot of these things lately, and I think it has to do with being able to find people that I feel safe with that are able to separate my character flaws from my brain chemistry flaws. And that's really hard for people to do that because, for one thing, I don't even know for sure when I'm being a total egotistical asshole and whether it is strictly because there's a bipolar mania thing and there's some delusion involved and there's some things like that. Typically, it's a mixture of both. Typically, if there's something I'm doing that is harmful or selfish or whatever it is, and you add mood disorders and personality disorders and panic attacks with those things, then it's really hard to restrain myself like most people would. And that has been very, very difficult. And it basically gives the impression that I have these horrible character flaws. And most people have a hard time resolving conflict because I tend to mimic a lot of the same external behaviors that people see in children and drug addicts and folks that are, extremely selfish and harmful and cruel people. What a lot of times people don't know, and this is one of those things that I'm telling to peers, other people that suffer with mental illness, is that, I experience this and that, and I experience like it's like my head is just this constant flood of voices and sounds and images and ideas and fears, and it just is intense, like most of the time. Very hard to find relief. And it's intensified when I'm in times of conflict, especially in times of stress around crowds, if I'm working, if I'm doing things that are new, and if I'm around certain people that I don't feel safe with, then it's really hard to say what my behavior is going to be like. And if I'm with people that immediately see something, and this is a natural habit that people have, is they see something and immediately their thoughts go towards preserving myself. I see somebody behaving badly, my immediate thought is that person could harm me. So it focuses on the peer, which is the person suffering from mental health issues, as not being the victim, but being the victimizer. And the person that is suffering is often seen as somebody who's the threat, which in fact, the person that is suffering a panic attack, for instance, is actually way more vulnerable than anybody. There are certain circumstances when there's, for instance, a war veteran, a PTSD victim, or something like that. And if you're cornered by somebody like that and you're threatening that person or whatever, or they feel threatened by you, things could get very, very abusive, damaging, whatever. And there are times when people, especially men, can just completely lose control of their will. And that's when things get really scary. It's very rare, though, because those are the people that end up on the news. So we're talking one in millions throughout, a period of long periods of time. But unfortunately, some of those events can be so harmful that those are the ones that make the news. Now, there are some local newscasters, and I haven't studied up on this here, but in the United States, I believe that the media is really trying to be more affirming towards people with mental disabilities, like they are when they say LGBTQ community instead of just saying the gays and lesbians like they did 20, 30 years ago. So they move their language in ways that is going to communicate an idea with doing the least amount of harm to all these different people groups. That's why I believe that the media is very liberal, because for the most part, mainstream media does these things and says these things that rural communities and conservative communities don't talk like that. The media talks a lot more like liberals do, and college educated people that are in the whatever mental health and healthcare and education, those kinds of people. So I think that's a good thing, and it's breaking down stigma. And the more I talk about my mental illness to people, the more it's freeing me, which is also what these videos are doing too. They are freeing me to be able to speak more eloquently or maybe to communicate more, so where I could kind of find out where they're at. Because here's the thing, I want people to be able to view me when I'm hurting and when I am out of control almost, or whatever level that I am, having a hard time controlling my behavior. I would like people to view me as somebody who's scared of being symptomatic in public and how terrifying that is, because any second somebody can come and continue to push my buttons even more, or commonly they view me as a threat, so they run away. And I mean, people close to me will run away, and disappear for long periods of time without any explanation. And so, yeah, these things are scary because they're very common in the lives of those of us, especially a guy who's over 6 foot tall and over 200 pounds with a deep voice. Whether I'm gay or straight, people still think I'm fucking like intimidating. But when I travel to middle America or out in the country, it's like, no, I am not intimidating. I'm actually kind of a regular guy. It's just that I happen to be around lots of very artsy fartsy people who, think that this kind of personality is hard to be around, and somebody with trauma and stuff. So those are things that I've been thinking about, of how to function in the real world after really not having done much. And now I'm faced to working with people constantly. And one of my big fears was applying for this government grant. Well, I get a call today, and I got approved for the program for this government grant thing for money for my business. It's like, holy shit, that's amazing. And so I've also had some friends that I've reached out to who were wonderful to get back with me and encourage me. And some people out of the blue that came into my life that was wonderful. And so it's been very sad, very, very discouraging. In fact, I really did talk myself into giving up on all this stuff just earlier this week. And I talked myself back into it. Actually, being approved for that program, I think, gave me a lot of encouragement today. So, thanks so much for watching, and good luck with whatever the fuck you're doing.